That's crazy. All right. Anyways, all right. Hello. Welcome to part two of the What If 2019 was a round of 32 bot bracket. Today I am only joined by Money and Zassa. Feel free to say hi at the same time again.
Good evening.
Everyone else died.
That is true. Everyone else did die. I can't believe this. All right. Anyways, I feel like the second half of the round of 32 should be pretty easy. I think there's only like one fight that could be discussed. That isn't like completely one sided. Anyway, starting off, we have Witch Doctor versus Ribot. I don't need to explain it. Actually, explain the premise of this podcast again. I don't want to. Anyways, Ribot versus Witch Doctor. I think this is pretty cut and dry, honestly.
I don't think there's any point in the show where it's not.
Yeah.
Really,
I mean,
we saw
yeah,
what the best version of Ribot could do against Witch Doctor, and it still
that's
really
true.
wasn't too much.
That's true.
A
I would
lot of nothing.
We go
I would
against
like
one of
to
the
counter.
best versions of Witch Doctor versus the worst version of Ribot. It's even more one-sided.
Yeah. Anyways,
Mhm.
Zaz, I would like to point out that I think early season 2020, I think Robot wins.
I'm not even certain of that, to be honest. Like, I
I
get
don't
why
know.
I get why you're pointing
I
that out.
think I think it'd be a lot closer
Even
than
in early 2020, I wasn't
I
really
think.
impressed with Ribot. They kind of lost against Mad Catter, who was like really struggling to get their weapon going.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
as we all agree Witch Doctor moves on, right?
Yes,
yeah.
rather
Okay.
easily.
Speaking of a fight that is rather easy, Gigabyte Scorpios.
Can't see too much of a universe where this doesn't end in a Scorpios JD win because,
Yeah,
like,
it's just
for
it.
as armored as they were, their weapon really isn't much to write home about this year. But at the same time, it's Scorpios going against a horizontal with a low tip speed and a fairly long spin up. I think this is
Yeah,
like their ideal matchup.
yeah. I think there's
Hmm.
only like two. I think there's only like one horizontal this season. I would say Scorpios doesn't beat, and that's Tombstone. But even then, that's like a decently close fight, I would say.
I
Just
do,
because Scorpio.
I do think that it would be really funny if they somehow repeat the thing that happened against Brutus, where Scorpius accidentally drives up a disabled Gigabyte and flips itself and can't get back over.
Which nearly happened against P1, by the way.
Hmm.
Yep.
But
God,
yeah, I
that
think
fight was
this
so
is
funny.
just about as good of a matchup as Scorpios can ask for in the
Yeah.
round one of the bracket.
All right. Next fight is Sawblaze versus Copperhead. Uh, I think this is pretty cut and dry this season.
Even
For
later down the line,
Unintended.
yeah,
leaning Sawblaze, but especially in season 4, this is a
yeah,
fairly one-sided Sawblaze win.
yeah. It's just
Well,
Copperhead.
while
Copperhead didn't
Sawblaze
get going
was
until
still
season 5.
prone to getting caught on the forks with their moderate wheelie issue, as we
Hmm.
saw against Witch Doctor, Copperhead just did not have the mobility to really do anything this season. They like
Yeah.
to lose sides of drive randomly. They were kind of meandering, and they've been pushed around by much worse spots this season.
All right. Uh, Zazzle, do you have anything to add, or
Uh, I mean, the fact that Copperhead lost to Scorpius in the same season, which is this, you know, just at that point worse than Sawblaze in pretty much every way.
hmm Yeah,
I don't see an argument. Even though Copperhead got a bit better as the season went on, I don't see it doing much at all.
yeah, yeah. All right, Hypershock versus Bloodsport. This season I think it's a pretty cut and dry Hypershock win. They
Yeah.
have that
Season
like
later, this would be fairly comfortably in Bloodsport's favor, but season four's iteration of Bloodsport is just kind of all over the place.
yeah, not to mention Hypershock has that like pretty big wedge in the front.
They've
So
got a solid wedge, yeah.
yeah,
I suppose if Will Bales just decides to, you know, have his brain cells just evaporate mid-fight, Bloodsport could potentially take a wheel or two off. But I mean, we've seen in the Valkyrie fight that Will is able to keep himself oriented at a horizontal at least. And against Bloodsport, who is very, very unstable this year, like extremely poor shape
Hmm.
to be a horizontal spinner, one decent smack is either going to leave it stranded on its side or lined up for a killing blow.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. This next fight, so the next fight is Hydra Shatter. Um, I think Hydra Shatter is genuinely decently close, but my only question is: are we assuming that Hydra went in with the same issues they had with against Minotaur? Because there's something that Jake just forgot to do, which caused them to their chance to lock up or something. Uh,
I
I know he didn't
is
mention it.
that is that a thing?
That's something that Jake has said before, that he didn't do something against the fight against Minotaur, and if he wouldn't, this was in like Green's podcast. I remember him saying something about it. Are we
Mhm.
assuming that Hydra's going in with at 100%? Is what I'm
I
asking.
just assume we're looking at every robot going in as if it's fully working.
Okay,
Yeah, I
okay, that's
I I don't know what issue he's referring to there, and I'm not going to say that he's wrong about that. I mean, he's the builder; he knows.
yeah,
But
yeah. No, I just don't remember
I
what the
can't
issue
I
is.
can't really recall any issue aside from Minotaur driving around to the back of Hydra and sniping the drive chain. So
Yeah,
I can't really
I.
say that it felt like it had any issues, but obviously
Mhm.
Shatter is not Minotaur, so
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Yeah.
kind of moot here.
Yeah, I do think this fight is decently close. I mean, I would go Hydra, but I would not. I wouldn't. I think it's
I
a lot closer
alluded to
than
this
you would
fight.
expect.
I alluded to this fight being one of the interesting ones near the end of part one of the
You should check that
round of
out.
32. I do think that at the end of the day, Hydra's probably going to come out the victor, mostly just because Shatter tend to kind of pitter out towards the end of fights against robots that couldn't do anything back. Like obviously it beat up Wanhu, but that was Wanhu, after it had thrown its weapon chain, or I guess it was a
Hmm.
belt. But Shatter, I think, really isn't going to be able to get a decisive hit that really cripples Hydra. I think it's going to go similar
Yeah.
to a lot of pre Power Hammer Blacksmith fights where they
Hmm.
get a ton of hits in, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be doing much other than getting them some points. And at the end of the day, I think it's just going to be moot by the end because Hydra, it's got the, I will say at this point, more effective weapon. Obviously, it just can't stand
Hmm.
there and take a ton of hits because it's gonna
Mm.
start to hurt eventually. But I don't think Jake is just gonna be the type to just sit there and eat hits. We've seen him be able to
No.
evade stuff like that before. And Hydra, especially against a robot like Shatter who has to use their weapon with limited amounts of hits to self right constantly, I think it's going to wear on them eventually.
Yeah, I can see this fight being a very good non-spinner fight, but I do think I do agree. Hydra will. I just don't think Shatter is gonna get those hits, and Hydra will, probably win a JD. I don't wait, because Shatter's hammer is electric, right? Do they have a limited amount
Ye-
of stuff?
They don't have a limited amount of firing, at least as
Hmm.
far as I can remember. Uh, but I do think that the hammer itself is going to really suffer
Oh, I see.
from landing, over and over again, having to flip itself over and over again.
Hmm.
Uh, I think that's going to be a struggle for it.
Right. Are we all in agreement that Shatter moves on?
Shatter does not move on.
Hydra
Hydra
I
does.
is
mean
gonna
Hydra. I mean Hydra. I mean Hydra. I meant Hydra.
tried to tried to sneak that in on us.
No, I don't like Shatter. No, I'm not the biggest fan of Shatter, bro. Or Hydra, for that matter.
And Shatter was
And
nice this year. I did like their color scheme this year, but
yeah,
for as cool as it was, sadly I think it has an early exit here.
yeah. All right, Minotaur uppercut. This
I,
is one sided.
this goes almost exactly the same as Minotaur versus Monsoon from the previous year, I think.
30 seconds and uppercut ends up on his face.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I see that it happening the
Only
exact way.
difference is that I could see the cocaine wheels being torn up because it's Minotaur.
Let's go, cocaine wheels. Hell yeah.
Cocaine.
Yeah, of course you
Yeah.
like cocaine.
Part of a
Yeah,
balanced diet.
I think Minotaur has to be a little careful in this fight, just because Uppercut does have a pretty strong weapon, but it's so off balance.
Did
It's not going to do much.
yeah. Anyways, death roll versus duck.
That's an easy death roll win.
Very
It's an
easy. death
easy.
roll
It's
win.
very easy to throw in, but I think it'd be pretty entertaining.
I
It
mean,
would
yeah,
be kind of
watching
fun to
Duck get
see.
kicked around is always entertaining. Just like watching
Yeah,
it get tossed all over the place. Yum.
I think this would
All
be
right.
equivalent to the Cobalt fight, except Death Roll doesn't do the
Yeah,
funny.
yeah. I was gonna say it's just gonna be the Cobalt fight again,
Perhaps
but
not as
better.
violent, but it would definitely leave Duck with a couple more scars.
All right. Huge versus Railgun Max.
Huge. No
I
question.
I
really,
think it's
really can't
huge.
see anything that Railgun can do here.
it's it's huge fighting about that it's just basically designed to be. So
Even regular vertical spinners might have a chance against Huge this year, just based on how kind of Huge's mobility was this year. But Railgun Max, it's a very compact spinner that really has no hope of doing much of anything to Huge. They might like tear up some of the tread a little bit, but eventually Huge is either going to snipe the weapon or just take off an entire wheel like we saw they did against Hypershock.
Yeah, Railgun Max is extremely fragile. I don't see anything they can do to win this fight aside from borrow Ice Wave and paint it red and gold and pray.
Welcome back, Raging Mustache.
all right, that right there concludes the round of 32. Moving on to the round of 16, we have 16 bots left. We have Bite Force, Rotator, Cobalt, Black Dragon, Tombstone, Quantum, Whiplash, Lockjaw, Witch Doctor, Scorpios, Solblaze, Hypershock, Hydra, Minotaur, and Death Roll Huge. Alright, let's start with Bite Force Rotator. This is going the exact same way last season.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
we've already seen how this goes. Rotator
Yeah.
might get by in a few less pieces than it was in after 2018, but it's still not going to go well.
Frankly, I think it's going to exit in more pieces if they bring in the forks.
Could
That
be.
is true.
Although it ends in pretty much the exact same result. I think Rotator is leaving in a trash
In a
bag.
body bag. Yeah. Alright. Cobalt Black Dragon.
This is a really fun one this year, I think. In pretty much any
Mhm.
of the years that these two share, now that I think about it, this would be a really
Yeah.
nice fight.
I think it'd be fun to watch, yeah. I think it's pretty I think Black Dragon takes it, at least this year.
I would say, yeah, mostly because once Cobalt loses that little feeder wedge, which it pretty much
Mhm.
always does against a spinner, it is completely useless.
Yeah.
I'm not certain that that's going to happen
I
here.
will say Black Dragon spinner this year was weedier than normal.
I'm not even talking about
Mhm.
the spinner. I'm talking about the Black Dragon's wedge in 2019 was just not that good. You know, I think they're going to have a difficult time feeding that into the spinner and getting it
Mhm.
off. And you know, I think that they might be durable enough to survive Cobalt. It really depends on the driving, but I
Mhm.
don't think they're going to be winning most engagements. And you know, if you are trying to go the distance with Cobalt, assuming it works for the full 3 minutes, and there's not a guarantee of that, but you know, if you're trying to go the distance with Cobalt, you have to win more engagements than it does because each time it wins an engagement, that spinner is really vicious.
Let me take a look at some of Black Dragon's fights from this year. I'm trying to jog my memory on how questionable their ground game was. Obviously, it's Black Dragon. It never really
Yeah.
has
Well,
good ground game.
they ran the flat wedge against a lot of opponents without any kind of like they
Yeah.
had the little wedgelets they ran against Minotaur, but I think that was about
I
it.
was always wondering why did they run the wedge against Lockjaw of all robots?
I think that was just the
Yeah.
standard that they had because a lot of robots at the time weren't running a ton of hinged ground game. It was still very much
The
static
only
wedges.
robot they really ran any sort of specific ground game attachment for was Scorpios, and Scorpios was running Big Bertha at that time, which weighed them
Yeah,
down, made them
so
really all
Yeah.
over the
they
place.
no ground game.
We
Yeah.
didn't
So
really get a good indicator of how good these actual wedgelets
yeah.
were because they were up
Hmm.
against a robot that really did all the
Hmm.
work for them with ground game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the wedge on Black Dragon at this point, it has that little strip in front of the weapon. That was kind of the same problem 2018 Witch Doctor had, where it blocks a lot of weapon engagement. So I think that that's going to really make them struggle against Cobalt here, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
if we had a good indicator of how competent their wedgelets were this year, I might be able to swing towards Black Dragon, but now that I do
Yeah.
remember, yeah, they were kind of iffy with running anything except the wedge, even against robots that really demanded ground game.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think this would probably end up going to Cobalt then, just because they can't lop off the little wedgelet tip, which is really for most robots a free win against Cobalt if they can do that. But if
Yeah.
Black Dragon can't do that, they should just be able to be kicked around, and they'd have to rely on the age old Black Dragon strategy of wait till my opponent cripples itself.
Yeah. Fraud Dragon relying on a fraud win. Let's go.
I will say they work for some
Uh,
of it, even if the work is becoming a punching bag.
all right. I assume we're moving Cobalt forward then.
With this new info, yeah. I will
All
say
right.
new, brought to my attention info, yeah, they'll probably move
All
forward.
right. All right. Tombstone Quantum. We've seen this, and I don't see it happening a different way.
I think I would hope it would be a much more interesting fight this time around. I think more often than not,
Yeah.
Quantum probably survives a little longer because they do have a
Hmm.
fairly solid anti-horizontal wedge. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, this is still Tombstone, like peak Tombstone we are talking about.
Yeah.
I don't see a world where
It ha-
Quantum can survive this.
it has so much reach and power, and
Hmm.
Quantum's sides are so vulnerable that I don't
Yeah.
see it not getting
No,
a drive snipe early. I don't think the
yeah.
weird physics interaction that happened in the real thing would happen twice.
Nah,
Like,
it'll happen. Actually, this what real fight? That's never happened before. I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Uh,
but
I
What do
think
you mean? This is brand new.
even if Quantum does manage to survive longer than like a minute or so, I think it's only a matter of time before they just throw in the towel because they don't
Yeah.
want their robot to be completely gone by the end of the fight. Like,
Yeah.
even if they do make it to a decision, I don't think they want it to go to a decision, frankly.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
think
Unless it's like them dominating the fight, which I just don't see happening here.
I think this
Yeah.
is the kind of fight that doesn't ever go to a decision. Like, these are two relatively unarmored robots that are all about their weapon. They are so lethal. They don't have much
They're so
protection
min-max.
against each other's weapons. I
Mhm.
really don't see this fight ever lasting longer than a minute, just because either Tombstone
Mhm.
at that point has crippled Quantum's drive and is just kind of showboating, or Quantum has bitten through Tombstone's batteries and is just ramming it against the walls
Yeah.
repeatedly. That's the only way it's going past a minute, is if one or the other is showing off.
Yeah. So, but we're all in agreement that Tombstone
Yeah,
would
Like,
theoretically
yeah,
show off
more
more.
often than not, yeah.
Yeah.
They
they
either
need
kill
they need
Quantum
to
in
do
under a
less.
minute they either kill Quantum in under a minute or Quantum taps out in under a minute or quote unquote taps out. There's no tapping out in BattleBots.
Yeah, that
Stop
was like a whole
moving,
episode name.
John.
That was like a whole episode name, if I recall correctly.
Mhm.
Episode 4 of season 3 was like there's no tapping out in Battlebots or something.
Yep.
Anyways, Whiplash versus Lockjaw.
Frankly, I think we got a pretty good idea of how this fight would go in their actual
Yeah.
fight, except Lockjaw wouldn't just break down near the end.
I'd
Yeah.
no, trust me, Whiplash would win this time. Trust. It did win. It would win again. Actually, trust me, bro. No,
I
I
think
don't.
If you call that winning,
Hey, it's not losing.
the Black
it's like
Dragon method.
the Robot Wars
Exactly.
style of winning. Just wait for
Yeah,
your
I think
opponent to stop
the
functioning.
actual fight between these two pretty much sums up how I think a rematch would go, except
Mhm.
Lockjaw, of course, just doesn't die near the end. It won pretty much all the head-on engagements. Is
Yeah.
carrying Whiplash all around the box. Whiplash with this was pre-fork Whiplash. They really couldn't
Mhm.
do much against Lockjaw. One of the
Yeah.
best ground game attachments in the world at this point.
Yeah. Boy, have the years gone. Uh. All right. I'm moving Lockshaw as the winner. Unfortunately, very sad.
For what
It's a
it's worth, I do
yeah.
think this likely does go to a decision, just because Lockjaw doesn't have much. It had
Mhm.
power this year. It didn't really have too much in the way of knockout power, and Whiplash is a
Yeah.
fairly tough robot.
Yeah. Whiplash. I mean, Whiplash went to a decision against Witch Doctor, which is pretty
Hmm.
impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Speaking of Witch
it's an
Doctor,
unlucky second round draw for Whiplash. They could have beaten the majority of the robots
I
who
think
made it
there's
to the
only
round of
like
16.
I think there's only 3 bots. No, 4. There's only 4 bots Whiplash would not beat in the round of 16, which is really unfortunate. Speaking of one of the bots who doesn't beat in the round of 16, Witch Doctor versus Scorpios.
Witch
I'm
Doctor.
sorry, Scorpios. I'm sorry, Scorpios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw that fight happen the next season with a much better version of Scorpius narrowly
Mhm.
losing the
It was
fight.
pretty good. It was a pretty good
Yeah,
fight.
they put up a damn good fight. I don't think they're gonna manage that same fight in
I don't think they
2019.
have it does
Yeah.
they also just straight up don't have the configuration they ran because I know they made the configuration for after they because they fought Lockjaw then made the configuration if I recall correctly.
Yeah, this was pre-ears Scorpios, which did actually
Mhm.
help them a fair bit against Witch Doctor, recalling
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah.
That was also Witch Doctor, obviously they had fixed their weapon issues by then,
Yeah.
but you could tell something was awry with Witch Doctor that fight.
Yeah.
They weren't hitting as hard as you'd expect Witch Doctor to hit, and they still ended up beating Scorpios. This is, peak season 4 Witch Doctor. And Scorpius is a competent enough robot this year,
Mhm.
but they did, struggle against Copperhead, who could really not move very well. I think Witch Doctor pretty handily tears them apart this year.
Ooh. Ooh, this next fight's actually rather interesting. Sawblade's Hypershock. I
A knee-jerk reaction, I'm thinking Sawblaze here.
Yeah. See,
I will have to give this one some thought, though.
yeah, see, my immediate thought is that Sawblaze does love to wheelie. So that's plenty of opportunities for Hypershock to get under and, do damage and stuff. But the thing is that it's also Will driving Hypershock, and Will is one of the drivers more prone to mistakes. I think. But it's
2019 Hypershock isn't as bad in terms of like gyro and stuff, so I think he'll get
yeah.
punished for them less, especially since Sawblaze's weapon is more reserved in the
Yeah.
way it's used.
I've
So
got to
I
think about the head-to-head engagements here because this is
Hmm.
post really bad wheelie issue Sawblaze
Hmm.
and Hypershock. They did have a static wedge this year, but all things considered, they had fairly competent ground game.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think I think Sawblaze would win if there wasn't really they would win head to head. But the thing is that yeah, they don't have the main wheelie issues, but they still do have some wheelie issues, which is like, ah, hmm,
Something to consider here, I think, in this specific interaction is that Sawblaze has very wide encompassing ground game that's fairly
mhm,
consistent across the board, whereas Hypershock Specifically in this 2019 iteration, it has a very, very tiny point of really good ground game and, well,
Yeah,
all right ground game, and the rest of it around their entire front end is fairly high off the ground. So they have to hit a really, really specific angle to, I think, consistently get under Saw Blaze.
yeah, that is true. But it also, again, the I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but the freaking Subway still has the wheelie issues. So if they do wheelie, that doesn't matter how good your ground game is if it's off the ground.
Hmm. An interesting one. The more I think about how their head-to-head engagements will go and how I think the weapons will come into play, I'm leaning more towards Saw Blaze here.
Yeah. Um. Hmm. Zazza, what say you?
It's a tough call to make. I think that I favor Sawblaze in the long run,
Mhm.
but it's hard to say, because Sawblaze has always been a very uh, min-max kind of robot where, like, if you can get past the big honkin' wedge and
Mhm.
the driving of Jameson going, Will Bales is definitely one of the few people who could do that. Uh,
Yeah.
its main body is up until very recently been quite vulnerable. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's one of those things that's basically, you know, are you are you betting on Sawblaze driving a perfect fight, or are you betting on Hypershock getting past his defenses? And that's a tough call to make. I think I think this season I might just lean towards Hypershock.
All right. So
Food for
that's
thought with this one.
so is that one vote Hypershock, one vote Sawblaze?
I'm thinking Saw Blaze for this one, yeah. This is a tough one though. I'm gonna have to think about this one on my own time.
Oh boy. Give me a minute to think about this. Cause yeah. Oh geez, this is actually like a really good. This would be. Oh, this is really close. Yeah. Oh.
I'm
I.
wondering if Sawblaze does
Hmm,
get. I think this is a fight too. If Sawblaze does get one hit in, it's going to cripple Hypershock due
yeah,
to
that's
the amount
that's
of
the
surface
main
area
thing.
of important stuff on Hypershock. He's got four massive wheels, which do unintentionally, well, no, intentionally help with the ground game since they're squishy. That's what keeps
Yeah.
the wedge on the floor. I think once damage comes to one of those tires, which I think will happen eventually,
Yeah.
I think that will probably compromise their ground game. But at the same time, will they be able to do that before Hypershock could compromise their own ground game by hitting them? I
Yeah.
don't know. That's a lot to think about in this one.
This is. I have no clue, man. This is. See, I'm leaning Sawblaze because I trust JMO to drive. I think it comes down to whoever is gonna get the first opportunity, and I feel like JMO is gonna be able to get the first opportunity more often than Will. But again, it's like 60-40 Sawblaze in my opinion.
Yeah, it's
So
If
I
we're
definitely
think.
close
talking about
to it.
battles of drivers and consistency, I
Mhm.
think JMO is pretty much always the safer bet.
Yeah, exactly. I think I think JMO is. Obviously I would say at this point in time JMO is probably my pick for best driver, but you know, uh, but I think I would go Sawblaze just based off the fact that if it's like first spot to cripple the other, I think Sawblaze is going to be the first spot to not get crippled. There we go. That totally makes sense.
The point is there though, even if it
Hmm.
came across a little weird. I think yeah, this is gonna come down to whoever cripples the other first, and I trust Saw Blaze. Oh, if only a tad bit more. to do that
Yeah.
this year.
Speaking of bots getting crippled, Minotaur dominates Hydra, right? I mean, we've seen it before.
Yeah, we've seen how this fight, and I think that's a good representation of how the fight is going to go around 90% of the time.
Yeah. All right.
I remember watching this fight and just being impressed that Hydra managed to get the one really good flip, and then after that, yeah, it went about as I was expecting.
No, I don't want. Oh gosh, darn it! I actually opened a freaking uh bookmarked thing. All right, a Minotaur wins. Okay, this next fight is, I
So
think, very fun. Death Roll
this is a really
huge.
fun one.
I think Death Roll wins this season because I think Death Roll, because it mainly comes down to huge having not like mobility issues and Death Roll also hitting like a ton of bricks and hmm hmm
I think this one goes a little deeper than the usual huge versus vert debate, where it's your
yeah
knee-jerk reaction is, can this vert actually do anything to huge? I think this one
You definitely
is
can.
a little deeper than that. Even if huge likely will be taking hits on the chin. I think
yeah it
even
can
if Death Roll couldn't reach Huge's main chassis,
I think it
frankly,
could
Huge took a long time to get up to speed this year, and Death Roll, especially in 2019, is in your face 24/7. Frankly,
yeah
I think even if Huge does land some hits, I think Death Roll is going to control them the same way Whiplash did. And that's not even
yeah
factoring in, like, yeah, Death Roll can indeed hit their chassis.
yeah exactly I think it's gonna be a very entertaining fight, but I do think Death Roll is gonna win like 70% of the time. Maybe 75. Oh man,
Of
I'm
all the
putting
verts
odds into
to
this.
go against Huge, I think Death Roll is definitely one of the better ones to do it, especially in
Yeah.
2019 where Huge they had weapon power, but it definitely took them a while to accrue damage on robots.
All right. So, Zazza, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you guys have mostly touched on all the points I wanted to talk about. I mean, I think a lot of it will depend in part on Death Roll's ability to self-right, because I think they are going to have to do that a few times with the way that
Hmm
Huge's reach can catch them at different weird angles. But I think that they definitely can hit the chassis. They can hit the wheels pretty well because of their huge blade. Uh,
No
you
pun
know they're
intended.
they're
No
pretty
fun.
durable. I think they can just get right up in there and attack and hope for the best.
All right.
Kind of touched on it earlier. I think this is likely going to go similar to the Whiplash fight, if only a bit more destructive.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that.
So it's gonna be really close, apparently.
Was that fight close?
I remember Huge sniping a
Apparently,
wheel, but I remember I
no,
don't think.
no. It didn't snipe a wheel. It hit the front plate so hard the wheel came off.
There was a tire. I remember it sniped the tire because
Yeah.
the rim was still there.
Yeah, no, no, again, it hit the front thing so hard the wheel came off apparently.
Oh, I kind of remember that one being a pretty like Whiplash
I
one, and
thought
that
it
one
was a
pretty
pretty
handily.
handle. I thought it was, but apparently I don't know, I guess some people thought Huge should have won off damage, but oh well. Anyways, round of 8. Bite Force, Cobalt, Tombstone, Lockjaw, Witch Doctor, Sawblaze, Minotaur, Death Roll. Oh boy. Bite Force, Cobalt. Oh
Very
god.
easy
Um,
fight force win.
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
this is pretty
Oh
much just
jeez.
Endgame versus Cobalt, but quicker and I think somehow even more brutal.
Yeah,
Endgame versus Cobalt, but Endgame can actually drive.
Endgame
Yeah,
versus Cobalt, but Endgame is good. Yeah.
that little wedge is. I don't know if Bite Force is going to send it into the ceiling, but it's definitely ripping it off. And after that, Cobalt is free pickings.
Okay. Um Tombstone Lockjaw.
So
Ah,
we saw this one IRL,
we
and we
did.
saw how it went.
But the
But I
thing
don't
is,
think that's a good indicator of how it will go all the time.
yeah, exactly. I think it's a genuinely close fight, and I think Donald will learn from his mistake. Uh, because obviously, this fight happened this season. It happened earlier, and I think Donald is, the type of driver to again learn from mistakes, right? And
Mm.
uh, I think I would still go Tombstone, but I think it'd be
I was gonna
genuinely very
say,
close.
I do think Lockjaw is going to do a lot better if they were to fight a second time this year,
Mhm.
but I still am struggling to see a world where they end up winning unless Tombstone does the same thing it did against Rotator, where Lockjaw can tank enough hits to where eventually Tombstone starts to pitter out. But at the same time,
Yeah,
Lockjaw is a lot more vulnerable than Rotator is.
Well, what
yeah.
happened against Rotator was that the weapon tooth came out completely, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I'm not sure that that's
I
going to
don't know if
happen against
Lockjaw is gonna
No,
Lockjaw.
be.
no shade to
Yeah,
Lockjaw's weapon, but I don't think it's going to be doing that to Tombstone.
Well, it's not the
yeah.
weapon that
It was
does
the
it.
wedge.
Yeah,
It was the wedge. Yeah.
but it's
Because
again
pretty sure
assuming
Rotator's weapon shattered at
everybody.
that point.
I was gonna say, didn't that
Yeah,
happen on the hit that their weapon they went weapon to weapon?
No, I thought it happened on one of the hits against the
I
wedge.
remember
I haven't
because
seen the fight in a while.
Tombstone hit the wedge, Rotator spun around, they went weapon to weapon. That's when Rotator's blade shattered, and that was right about when Tombstone started shaking.
maybe
Maybe it was.
it's been a while, but I
Yeah,
don't
I
The
remember.
point is, I don't see it happening again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Uh, it would be very. I do
As
think Lockjaw would make it
awesome as
very
it
close,
would
though.
be to see a vintage Lockjaw versus horizontal performance, I just don't see it happening this year against Tombstone. I think it's
Yeah.
a really, really fun fight, but I think it's also only a matter of time before Lockjaw, gets a wheel clipped off or has their weapon completely mangled. I think Donald is very, very good at keeping the wedge pointed towards opponents, but at the same time, any margin of error is almost an instant death against Tombstone this year, as we saw in their IRL fight.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think it's only a matter of time before Lockjaw gets crippled and Tombstone just takes it from there.
yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Oh, right. Speaking of fights that happened this season, Witch Doctor Sawblaze. Uh, I don't see it going any differently, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it
Witch
definitely has
Doctors.
the potential to, but like
Mhm.
more often than not, it's not.
Yeah.
We basically covered this or IRL. This fight basically covered how I think the matchup would go more often than not. Sawblaze still had minor wheelie issues at this point. Witch Doctor's
Mhm.
discs ride very, very low, and as we saw, once they got a single good hit on the front of Sawblaze, those forks were starting to give way. After that,
Yeah.
Witch Doctor just took complete control of the fight. And I
Yeah, and
think
also
that's really how it's going to go again. Once they get one good hit on the front, Sawblaze is not going to be able to do much after that.
yeah, this also just encompasses basically what I mean, we discussed Hypershock versus Sawblaze earlier this episode, and Witch Doctor and Hypershock are not on the same tier, right? Because Witch Doctor is like easy S tier at this point. Hypershock's like
Yeah, season four
A.
Witch Doctor is a free S
Yeah,
tier.
yeah, and then uh, while they're not on the same tier, it also we debated Hypershock Sawblaze, and we view it as a very close fight. But Witch Doctor again is just another tier, very similarly designed, while also being like very different. But they're both four-wheeled vertical spinners with good drivers from Florida. Oh my goodness, they're the same robot. Trust me, bro.
If we're comparing this to how we debated Sawblaze versus Hypershock earlier this episode, think of
Yeah,
that debate, but Hypershock has a much, much easier time engaging with
mhm.
their weapon. And no shade to Will, I think Mike is a better driver.
Yeah. No, no. I think Will would also agree that Mike is a better driver.
Yeah, this is basically just how we imagined debating Hypershock versus Sawblaze earlier, but Witch Doctor has much easier time getting the weapon into play.
Yeah. All right. Witch Doctor. All right.
And for another
Uh,
rematch,
I. Mm, I think this fight
So
is real.
I rewatched this fight recently. If you don't know, we're talking about Minotaur versus Death Roll, by the
Oh yeah,
way.
Minotaur Death Roll. Yeah, or Death Roll.
I
Yeah.
rewatched this fight recently.
Surely there will be
And
graphics up on the screen, right, Blaze?
If I remember to put them there, yeah.
you just use the challenge bracket. Having rewatched this fight recently, obviously, I think it is a very, very impressive display from Death Roll. However, something that I think people have sort of
Money.
forgotten over
I
time with
hate.
this fight.
I had to interrupt you, but my headphones disconnected for a solid like 10 seconds. Can you just repeat your point real quick? I just want to.
So,
Yeah.
having
What kind of host are
rewatched
you?
the fight recently, while I do think this fight was a very, very impressive display from Death Roll, something that I think people have sort of forgotten over time with this fight is the way they disabled Minotaur's weapon was a very, very slim snipe. They managed to clip Minotaur's weapon belts,
Mhm.
which, as we've seen, Minotaur has faced tons of vertical spinners at this point, and that almost never ever happens. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
Death Roll got a complete lucky break in this fight because they
Mhm.
did perform very well against Minotaur, but
Mhm.
they did also get a fairly well, I guess lucky snipe on Minotaur's weapon.
They're Canadian.
Yes.
Um, if we're debating this fight with a fully working Minotaur, I still
I think.
think against Death Roll in particular, this is still a very good fight.
I think it's a very good fight, but I would go Minotaur. Uh, personally, even though obviously Death Roll did win in the the actual fight. However, as money, as you said, they got a very lucky snipe to disable the weapon. Um, they became Canadian for just one hit.
Mm,
Uh, and personally, I think Minotaur is outside of the snipe. I think Minotaur is not a. I don't want to say like a bad design for them to fight, but it is, or like a tough design at all. But it is also a smaller, shorter spinner drum hitting a reach vert, which
Frankly, I think
again,
of all the verts to go against Minotaur, I think Death Roll is one of the more optimized ones.
that's fair. That is true because they obviously they don't
The
rely on a
main
ground game.
concern if you're a vert going against Minotaur is always, okay, they're going to tear up my ground game. Will I be able to
Yeah,
engage after that? Death Roll doesn't really have that issue.
yeah,
Something to note also with Death Roll in particular is their air armor side. Minotaur usually loves tearing into the opponent's side armor, or if they just don't have it, their wheels. And while I
yeah,
do think Death Roll is obviously still susceptible to getting hit
mm,
from the side, I don't think they're going to be as easily crippled if they get hit from the side from Minotaur.
yeah,
And also, I think what's his name again? Stephen Martin, I think it was, driver of Death
yeah,
Roll. He's
yeah.
not
Steve Martin.
one to allow many robots to get to his side. Obviously, Daniel is a top tier driver in any
Yeah,
competition that he's in.
Daniel is
But
arguably the best driver
I
in the
think
world.
I don't think Minotaur is really going to have much of an option here other than to go face on with Death Roll. And
But the thing is that Minotaur also
when it comes,
really likes going face on with robots.
that is true. However, this then comes down to can Minotaur whittle down Death Roll throughout the fight, or will it go pretty much the same way
I
that we
think
saw
it
in round
can.
8?
I think Minotaur definitely can.
I think we've seen Death Roll and its Chinese cousin Great White
Mhm,
get kicked around by a lot of different verts. It's not the
mhm.
most stable of robots. It's extremely durable and it can take those kinds of engagements for a long time.
Yeah.
But the problem is that Minotaur is even better at doing that. They excel at the long game. Minotaur's greatest strength in pretty much every fight is the
Yes,
knowledge
Daniel
that it is
Freitas.
so durable and so reliable that it can take any one punch on the jaw and just keep coming at you.
Yeah.
You go and you look at so many fights. Like just last season alone, you had it versus Cobalt versus Sawblaze It was on
Mhm.
fire for
Do
half
we
of those
think
fights, and it just
However,
kept coming at them. It's like I think
Yeah.
that a reach vert is definitely one of the better ways to fight Minotaur. Like
Mhm.
one of the most reliable ways to beat it, and this was something that was echoed last season when they fought Malice,
Mhm.
is to just keep punching in the face because it is so happy to get punched in the face. If you keep hitting someone hard enough, eventually they drop.
Yeah,
But
exactly, like
with
Duck. Um,
if you watch Death Roll's fight with Endgame, if you go ahead and watch some of the parts of its fights with Witch Doctor, you go and watch some of the fights it had in China with like Mad Catter and stuff like that. It's
actually, it's Cat King.
uh, quiet nerd. Uh, it once it is off balance, it has a hard time resetting itself, and it is very easy to kind of chase it down and keep on it. Even if we want to look at the same version of Death Roll that was in the last season, against Cobalt and against Monsoon, once it was off balance, it was very easy for them to just kind of chase it down and keep on it and not let up. And I think that if Minotaur does get that opportunity, they're toast.
Yeah, and I also I completely agree. I think Minotaur would eventually get that opportunity, but again, it's a very very close fight, and it's probably one of the best fights of the season.
Oh yeah,
Um,
banger.
yeah,
hmm,
I I would go Minotaur again. I've already said this before. I mean, Zazza honestly convinced me even more for Minotaur than Death Roll. Uh, but yeah, I mean, again, very good fight. Yeah, I think Minotaur beats Death Roll more often than not. So is this 2 votes Minotaur, 1 vote Death Roll?
thinking about it more, I am still probably leaning towards Death Roll. So yeah,
Mhm.
I think I'll still stick with my vote for this.
All right,
Very, very tough one though.
yeah, I completely agree. I think this is like I think this is probably the second toughest fight we've discussed. The only tougher fight is probably Hypershock Sawblaze, and even then, this is arguably more tough. Zaz, are you voting Minotaur?
Yeah, I'm voting
All
Minotaur.
right,
It's a damn close fight, but I think Minotaur just has that slight edge.
all right, all right, and now we got the final four, and I'm
Almost
kind of
identical to what it was IRL.
almost almost identical. Yeah. Oh boy, Bite Force Tombstone, Witch Doctor, Minotaur. Let's start with Bite Force Tombstone. This is going Bite Force's way. I don't
This
think
is a
it's gonna happen
fight.
the exact way,
This is a
but
fight that I wished would have been a lot better than it was IRL, because these are pretty much unanimously considered the two best robots from that year. I suppose you
uh
could make an argument for Witch Doctor,
I was
but
gonna say I would feel like
I
I
think
would I don't know, I'd
I
say Witch
wish this
Doctor
fight
is
would have been much better than it was IRL, because I think
yeah.
Tombstone very much has the opportunity to severely damage Bite Force more than we've ever seen it take damage before.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
It's Bite Force and it's hard
it's
to go
Bite
against Bite
Force. It's
Force.
very hard to root against Bite Force.
No, it's very easy to root against Bite Force. It's very easy to win against Bite
It's
Force.
it's very
Very
hard to
In
hard to win.
it's very hard
in
to
the
bet against.
logistical sense, it is hard to root against Bite Force. In the moral sense, and then no, not too hard.
It is very easy. It's also what like the battle of the only champions we had at this point in time for
Hmm.
modern BattleBots. It's also a rematch from the season 1 final. Um,
Overall, just a great match.
it's a
Yeah,
great
very.
fight. If Fight Force were to ever come back, I feel like they would give it Tombstone round 1. Honestly, maybe I don't know. I feel like they would give it
Assuming
Tombstone.
Tombstone's also back at the same time.
I mean, Ray's probably.
As long
I know
as long
Ray is definitely coming back
as long as he
as long
doesn't
as
stick
Ray
his
doesn't.
hand in a saw blade again.
Yeah.
Please don't do that again.
Please
Uh,
don't. I like
Thinking
Tombstone.
about the actual debate between these two, I think if Tombstone drives a perfect fight, they very well could win this. But
Yeah.
given how we've seen Tombstone, we saw how the actual fight ended up between these
hmm
two. It's hard for me to say it would go too much different.
I
Tombstone
know.
is never out of a fight. Like it always has
Yeah,
that
no.
puncher's chance just on on the
Yeah.
power of its weapon. But Bite
Well,
Force is
here's
so
the
consistent.
thing with the Tombstone fight with Bite Force Tombstone. Tombstone, obviously, like its weapon broke, but I thought the weapon broke against from like it had like previous battle damage from the Gruff fight, right?
I believe
And
so. Yes.
and if we're assuming that, are we obviously are we assuming that Tombstone runs the same blade and has the same issues? Because that would make sense.
Well,
But I thought we
I
were
would
assuming that every bot was at 100%.
I would assume that he would run the same blade. I think
Mm,
my question would be, in this universe, has he had any reason to find out about the fracture? Because, like, obviously, in the real world, he didn't
yeah,
until that
exactly.
happened.
Let's see
And
here. What
the
let's
only
look at the fights.
the
He has
only
fought
fight he's had so far that wasn't one that happened in real life, and
is
therefore
free
might
shipping.
change this, is against free shipping.
I mean, free
Uh,
shipping is like very built very similarly to Gruff, and I could see him just straight up running the same bar.
Mhm. We've
could
seen pretty much Tombstone versus free shipping many times.
hmm
Thinking back to all the Last Rites versus Original Sin fights, more often than not, I've seen him run the Toothed Bar against Original Sin.
Has he?
I don't know
Oh
if he
yeah.
would do the same against free shipping though, because we saw in their actual
hmm
fight. This was, of course, before the silver and red bar, but he ran a
Yeah.
bar that didn't have teeth.
Yeah.
At least not attachable teeth, I should say, because I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, it still has a cutting edge.
Yeah. Exactly.
I just don't know if he would do the same thing against Original Sin 2 years earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, does free ship? What was Do we ever see free shipping fight a spinner? Not a spinner, like a horizontal spinner.
Texas Twister this year.
Texas Twister. Let me pull up that fight to
They ran like
see.
their red kind of plow thing. It wasn't really a wedge, more like a snow plow shape.
Uh, I just want to pull up the fight so I can actually like see what the wedge snowplow
it's the
thing
one.
was.
It's one the original Sin has run several times.
Oh, is it the
Be
freaking
happy viewers.
the yellow the
Yep.
yellow? Okay.
Be glad Fight Force
Hmm.
free shipping's fighting your fight for you.
Yeah, sorry, Vice Force. We're debating between whether or not Ray runs the same. Ray has an opportunity to find out that the weapon is uh what
Micro
damage.
fractured hell.
Yeah, yeah. Just pull up. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna take a picture and send the free shipping pledge in the group chat real quick. Another group chat, the text chat. Wrong people. Um, would Ray run the gruff bar against this?
I feel like he might. I mean, it depends on whether he's going for tire snipes. Because if he's going for those, he's gonna run the big toothed bar, I think. But
Yeah, that
That was
is.
pretty much always his strategy against Original Sin, yeah.
hmm
yeah,
I
but I
don't
mean,
think he
against
Yeah,
original Sin, he's also fighting the judging criteria that robots
that
yeah,
use.
is true.
that is always
He's fighting
But
a bad,
where- whereas here, he's
criteria.
fighting on his home turf, where damage is king, and he's the king of damage.
King of
So
kinetic energy.
he's using the black bar if he's expecting a real like knockdown drag out fight like against Gruff, or
yeah,
if he's going against a really high power vertical spinner since it's a short dense bar.
yeah.
Frankly,
I
against free
think
shipping
against free shipping,
specifically, I think he's going to go tooth bar because
Mm,
no disrespect to Gary, I think the wheels will be his main concern here. I don't think Ray is going to go into this expecting a really, really long fight. So I don't see why he would
Well,
really have much of a reason to use the black bar, unless obviously free shipping does the free shipping thing of surviving on one wheel.
I'll say
yeah,
this.
again,
I agree about which bar he'd run, but I actually disagree on the reasoning there. I think he'll take this match a lot more seriously than perhaps people will give free shipping credit for in general. Because I mean, free shipping hasn't been good in BattleBots, but
but it is like,
Ray has lost to Original Sin a whole lot. So I think
yeah,
that he would
Ray,
probably approach this like he's fighting that battle.
yeah. I think, yeah, I think agree that Ray would not find out about the microfracture, and therefore the weapon that he obviously like selects for Bite Force will obviously he wouldn't have figured out that it has the fracture, right? And
Yeah,
you know
he'd be running
and
the
I
same
Frankly
thing.
speaking, I think
mhm,
even if he did notice it and switch out the bar,
mhm.
Bite Force would likely still come out on top most of the time.
No,
But
I completely agree that Bite Force wins most of the time. I
yeah,
was
if he runs
just
the
yeah,
worn and torn black bar, that just makes Bite
mhm,
Force's job a little easier.
yeah,
Or a lot easier, I should say, because
a lot
it's never an easy
easier.
fight against Tombstone.
Yeah. I think we're all in agreement. Bite Force beats Tombstone.
Mhm.
Yeah. Obviously, they have to be careful, but I think Paul's a very careful driver, so yeah, I think he takes this.
All right, Witch Doctor Minotaur.
In this
Oh
season, Witch
boy.
Doctor.
I was going to say in this season, Witch Doctor for the same reasons I brought up
Mhm.
with Death Roll, except Witch Doctor is a
Yeah,
lot more stable than Death
it's more
Roll.
stable. It also does it hit harder? It might hit harder. I'm
Yes,
not
I will
sure.
say Witch Doctor has a better time with Bite than Death Roll. I think
Yeah.
kinetic energy wise, they may be on
Mhm.
similar levels, but
Yeah.
Witch Doctor does not struggle with Bite like Death Roll sort of does sometimes ish.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
The point is,
also.
I think Witch
Mhm.
Doctor is going to get good purchase against Minotaur.
Yeah, I think this season is the only season I would say Witch Doctor wins a majority of the time that they share. Just because I do think Benatar wins most of the time in season 6. Anyways,
And their
I
season
think
6 fight was looking so good, bro. That always
I
irks me
know.
because their season 6 fight was such a banger up until the funny.
Yeah, yeah. All right. All right. We're all in agreement. Witch Doctor wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year.
All right.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, gotta rip the
It is
Band-Aid off,
inevitable.
now. Yeah, rip the Band-Aid off now, it's gonna be Bite Force, we all knew it.
No. Trust me. Witch Doctor almost beat Bite Force. If they ripped off that last wedgelet, they would
I'm
have won.
something to note, yeah, Witch Doctor, of all the verts this year, I think they very well could win this fight against Bite Force, but
Yeah.
can never never root against Bite Force logistically.
Yeah. I know. But man, I want to
Um
root against Bite Force.
I think if a similar thing happens, but Witch Doctor's weapon doesn't die, Bite Force could very well be in a lot of trouble here.
Mhm.
But Paul, I don't think is
Did the
going
weapon
to
die?
see the
I thought they lost because the Self Rider broke. Because I know
their
they
weapon
lost.
died, which is what allowed Bite Force to win their head-on
Oh, I
engagement.
see. I see.
Because Witch
I
Doctor
see.
wasn't, throwing them away because they were getting contact on their front end. Their weapon died.
Oh,
Bite Force
I
hit them,
see.
tipped them over, and then they hit the Self Rider as they were flipping back over, which broke the sprocket for it.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then
Yeah.
once they flipped it over, yeah, that was it.
I think this fight is like actually like probably the closest fight. This is probably the hardest fight for Bite Force this season, outside of maybe Huge. But then again, I think Bite Force beats Huge. And the only reason I'm saying huge is because it's huge fighting a fucking four-wheeled bird. So
There's another thing to note too. This is very late in the season. We saw it a few times in 2019. Despite Witch Doctor being the monster that it was in season 4, it did struggle with really long fights. We saw it against
yeah,
Shatter. We saw it against Death Roll, and I don't think it can afford to go longer than maybe a minute and a half or 2 minutes against Bite Force. And Bite Force, it's Bite Force. We've never seen this thing just get knocked out ever.
Yeah. No, it's never been knocked out. The only fight it's ever, lost is, a JD. And the only fight it's ever, stopped, you know, quote unquote stopped working was, against Endgame. And even then that was just because they had like radio issues for like a minute. Not a minute, like
Yeah,
20 seconds.
yeah. I don't even remember if they specified what the issue was, but I just
Mhm.
remember Paul running around the arena trying to get it back on, and it started working again.
Witch Doctor's
Yeah.
weapon this year too also, I wouldn't say was prone to dying, but we did see that it was susceptible to
Mhm.
failing every now and then. We saw it against what was it, Whiplash, who didn't go down easy.
Mhm.
Did it die against Gigabyte, or did they just turn it off? I know they did.
They
It did stop
turned
at
it
some
off.
point.
I believe they did turn it off. Uh,
Don't remember off the top of my head.
I saw that fight like a week ago. I could not tell you. I believe they turned it off. I could also just be making shit up.
But that also does segue or go into my point that I made earlier about Witch Doctor not really liking long fights this season.
Yeah, I think Witch Doctor does lose the Bite Force, unfortunately. As much as I want to say Witch Doctor wins, because Witch Doctor is objectively a cooler bot than Bite Force. Uh,
All, all roads lead to Bite Force, I'm afraid.
yeah, that's it's
I, I
unfortunate.
think I think I made a joke about this before we started recording last episode. And there's a lot of bureaucracy just to say Bite Force wins again.
I know. I hate it here, man. Wish
I mean,
man.
I think what we've really established here today is that 2019 might have been objectively the best bracket because it seems like the best robots were pretty much winning. The only top four that we had different was Minotaur, and that's just because we called the death roll fight going a slightly different way.
It is, and again, it is probably like, and also death roll easily. Like, hey,
Death
maybe
roll with
if
another opponent, it could have easily made the semifinals again.
yeah, exactly. Death row is very, and death row only lost because it was what, like 2 votes to 1.
Split
So
decision loss, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it lost by a split decision.
Yeah, I think that is a very good thing about this. This is a very, very competitive bracket.
Hmm.
In around a 32 format, and even more so with around a 16 format, because that was just 16 robots. With a 32, yeah, that just added even more competent robots to the fray.
Yeah, there's
Of
there is a
course,
reason
uh,
that yeah,
Bite Force is still present, so
yeah.
I'm afraid,
Unfortunately,
it
maybe
is
we should have
inevitable.
done what I did with my 2019 top 50 and banned Bite Force. Trust me, it would have been more interesting.
Well, in that case, it's just going to be either Tombstone or Witch Doctor taking its place.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair.
If you
But you
take
know what?
out
At
those
least it's not
three,
Bite
then
Force.
I think it becomes a lot more. I won't say tight because I think there are definitely still favorites like Death Roll and Minotaur, but
Death Roll, Minotaur, Whiplash, uh, all are probably
Lockjaw. I
next
think
four.
those four probably make up then the next top contenders. But
Yeah,
in a comp that features Bite Force, Tombstone, and Witch Doctor in season 4, pretty much always just bet on them being top 3 and Bite Force being number 1.
yeah. It is unfortunate that Bite Force won, but at the end
It's
of the
just
day,
the way it goes.
At the end of the day, it's one of the best heavyweights ever. Obviously, I think Original Sin is uh technically on paper the best heavyweight ever because it has what the most tournament wins, I believe.
I do believe, well, no, I know that Bite Force does definitely have a better win loss ratio than
It
Original
does
Sin.
have a better win loss ratio, but it also has not fought as much as Original Sin, I
Something
believe.
to note too is that Bite
Original
Force
Sin,
definitely had a higher margin of they had a higher caliber
yeah,
of competition than Original Sin. I
yeah.
I respect Original Sin
Original Sin
because
is
it's the winningest robot to ever do it, but it was fighting plumbers and freaking
Yeah.
contractors for most of its career.
And Electric Boogaloo also. I don't know why I'm bringing up Electric Boogaloo. I don't know why I'm thinking about Electric Boogaloo. I was gonna I was gonna bring up that they both had Tombstone.
I think that's pretty relevant because that was a teaser of what would happen to Original Sin if it actually fought a competent vertical spinner.
Peru.
I mean, we
So you
saw
mean
what happened the one time Electric Boogaloo was actually working properly.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean obviously I mean
Back to the
obviously I
point
think
though, Bite Force
Bite
can
Force
never bet against it,
sucks
can never bet against it against in pretty
in
much
season
anything from
4.
2020.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
in season 2
Well,
because Bite Force was having
no,
their
no, no. Even
issues.
even 2020, I think Bite Force has a very good shot against basically every robot in the field except maybe like you. And those being
You
those
know,
being Hydra and Endgame.
saying that could be a good idea for another podcast episode. What if Bite Force had gone on into upcoming seasons?
Ooh.
How well would it do in a theoretical fight night format?
Yep. I feel like that
Oh
would
and
have to be like
4.
a 0 and 4.
Yep.
0 and 4.
Never
Don't
mind.
ask
Episode
questions.
scraps. That's how it's going.
Yeah. I asked the Magic 8 Ball. It told me try again.
The Magic Conch says no.
All right. Anyways, thank you for watching this episode of the podcast. Leave your ideas for what ifs down below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.